Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. In commemoration of the upcoming Wonder Woman 1984, I'm binging the DCEU, from Man of Steel to Shazam. I've already got a Birds of Prey review out. My reviews for Man of Steel up to Suicide Squad should already be up, so now it's time to talk about my favorite movie in the DCEU, and quite possibly my favorite superhero movie of all time. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. This is gonna take some time to explain, so let's get to it. Look man, I was stoked when this movie was made official. It's been in production hell for who knows how long, with so many different types of actresses attached to the role. Megan Fox was a fan favorite before she shot that down. Sandra Bullock was attached to it. Angelina Jolie, she was attached to not only star, but also to direct at separate points in time. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Gina Carano, Jessica Biel, Jamie Alexander, Olga Kurylenko, Kate Beckinsale, Christina Hendricks, Eva Green. A lot of these actresses go as far back as 2007. I heard even back then, Joss Whedon tried to pitch a script for this movie, but no one would buy it. Can you freaking believe that? Over 10 years, this movie has been trying to get off the ground. Jesus. But for me, it was well worth the wait. But no more. Let's get into this movie. This is my deep dive into Wonder Woman. And yes, that's what I'm going to call these longer reviews from now on. Also, let's just get this out of the way. We start our movie off with class with Diana Prince, played by Gal Gadot, in France, in a museum, getting a gift from Bruce Wayne that was alluded to in Batman v Superman. This transitions to one of my favorite sequences in the film, Diana as a young girl, played by Lily Espelle. And how could it not be? Look at these gorgeous visuals. The closest we ever got to color in these movies up to this point was Suicide Squad, and that neon coloring was never in universe, but just a visual gimmick to introduce characters. Nope, this movie says screw that, here's Themyscira. Look at that crystal clear blue ocean. Look at that green vegetation. This is just crazy gorgeous. It also really tickles me that she's kind of a troublemaker who avoids education to go see something more appealing. Like ass-kicking badasses. What a terrible message to put out there for young girls. Ditch school and watch people beat the shit out of each other. But that's probably the most relatable thing for kids in this movie. I did the same thing. I preferred to watch cartoons of my favorite superheroes beating the shit out of villains, or in my favorite video games. Preferred to do that over homework. But to be fair, Diana does have exquisite taste in inspiring heroes. I'll never get tired of watching this shit. Just make the movie about these Amazons training and I'll be perfectly satisfied with that. I'll even watch the behind-the-scenes stuff.
My background is CrossFit.
So I'm a police officer in South Wales. I work regular hours, 8 till 4, and train in the evenings. I do CrossFit.
I was on the national wushu team, which is Chinese martial arts, and then by stroke of luck, wushu was in the 2008 Olympics.
But even that won't be enough sometimes. Well, until you show me this bundle of cuteness. This brought me back to my childhood, man. Imitating my favorite heroes with 0% of my own grace and badassery. Lily Espelle is a lot cooler than I ever was at her age, so... Oh, and before anyone says anything, no. The backgrounds and the actors do not mesh very well. There is obvious green screening going on. Look at what happens when Diana jumps off this ledge. Like, her hair's not even blowing. In fact, yeah, a lot of the special effects in this movie are really subpar. Both MOS and BVS had wonderful CG, but without a good story, without relatable characters, without something to connect to, that good CG amounts to next to nothing. Less than stellar effects can be forgiven if they're pretty or supplemented by a great story and great characters, which this excels in by a comparison to every DCEU movie thus far and after. So don't bother to bring attention to the poor CG to me. Yeah, it's not great. Shut up and move on with everything else around it.
Hello, Mother. How are you today?
This kid kills me.
What if I didn't use a sword? Just a shield then. No sharp edges.
A story of our people and my days of battle.
Yes!
I really like this exchange between Hippolyta and Antiope over whether or not they should begin training Diana as a warrior. On the one hand, I do find it curious why a race of warriors, born and bred to be so, would deny a single one of their own training. I have no doubt that they value knowledge and education, but one would think there's a proper balance to be had. Yet, I can also understand why Hippolyta softens on this notion. How long has it been, truly, since the Amazons have been in a straight-up fight? How long ago was that Justice League flashback scene? Hundreds? Thousands of years? I don't blame the Amazons for sticking to their values of being vigilant and constantly training, but after a certain amount of time, I would also think it's natural to hit a point of comfort, not being worried about an invasion by your enemies anymore. And we've seen stories about child prodigies and how the main theme is whether or not we let them shoot for the stars and see what they can really do, or let them stay as kids and have normal upbringings, but at the fear of wondering if they're being held back. This is something I enjoyed being played with. Sure, we know how this goes because the rest of the movie happens, but Connie Nielsen's performance is raw enough that I do believe she just wants to protect her child from growing up too fast. After a pretty swanky mythology scene about the gods, the creation of man, the corruption of Ares, the god of war, the creation of the Amazons, and Ares' defeat, Diana defies her mother and goes off to begin her training with Antiope in secret, but not before we get introduced to the God Killer.
Who would wield it?
Only the fiercest among us even could. And that is not you, Diana. And there is nothing you should concern yourself with.
I love that sword. I love it. This much. Can't imagine why I'm single. Fast forward to a 12-year-old Diana, played by Emily Carey, who would, funny enough, go on to play a young Lara Croft in Tomb Raider the following year, still training, but is discovered by her mother. Boy, that took a while. But Hippolyta comes to the hard conclusion that the best way to protect Diana is to allow her to be trained, but not just any kind of training.
You will train her harder than any Amazon before her, until she is better than even you.
It looks like Antiope's training is on track to paying off until... I do kind of wonder why Diana's first reaction is to run away in guilt, as opposed to say, Mom, what the fuck, bitch? What? I said this movie is my favorite of the DCEU films. I said it's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, superhero movie of all time. I never said it was a perfect or flawless film. This script can get a little meh sometimes. Diana runs off to contemplate what happened when she sees a plane crash into the ocean, piloted by Steve Trevor, played by the amazing Chris Pine. Diana saves Steve and pulls him to shore. And I swear to God, her posture, the way she looks at him, it's like a puppy who just found something that just blew its mind and doesn't know how to react to it. I absolutely love this. Already, I think Gal Gadot is one of the most adorable women in Hollywood right now.
You guys got to be really great friends on this, right?
Oh my
You
God,
guys
we
just really
slept
hung out.
we fine. I think you look absolutely stunning. And I'm happy to take you to dinner anytime.
Thank you. I have a husband, but I don't have a boyfriend yet.
Oh, good.
So we'll see. I don't want to be Bob Sponge.
Bob Sponge?
SpongeBob.
Bob Sponge? I don't want to be Bob Sponge.
But this feels so natural. I don't even want to know if this was directed by Patty Jenkins or if it was a conscious choice by Godot herself. Just let me live in my fantasy that she is just naturally this cute. The Germans are inching closer and we get to yet another favorite scene of mine. The Amazons in action, baby. Robin Wright just makes the first 20 minutes of this movie. Sadly, Antiope sacrifices herself to save Diana, but the fate of our dear Mr. Trevor becomes a debate. Literally. And with the lasso of truth, sings like a canary about his mission.
The Germans had no troops left, but our intel was wrong. The Germans had the Turks building bombs for new weapons, secret weapons, invented by Dr. Isabel Maru. The boys in the trenches called her Dr. Poison. If Dr. Maru was able to complete her work, the war would never end. I had to do something. But if I can get these notes back to British intelligence in time, it could stop the war.
Though convinced that Steve himself is no threat and still unsure of what to do with him, Diana believes that this great war is being caused by Ares and believes that the Amazons should be part of the conflict, but Hippolyta refuses. After a rather humorous table turn of a gratuitous naked scene with a man this time...
Would you say you're a typical example of your sex?
Above average.
Good answer, bro. A scene like this in any other movie would just be for pure titillation. But in here, it's in service of our understanding of these characters and the characters' understanding of each other. Spotlighting the absurdity of time telling us what to do, when to do it, the Amazons being seemingly all-powerful, and he just kind of looks at her like she's nuts. But it does culminate into one of my favorite lines of the movie.
I don't think want is the word. I guess I gotta try. If you see something wrong happening in the world, you can either do nothing or you can do something. And I already tried nothing.
Getting in touch with her inner Spider-Man, Diana takes Steve's word to heart, steals the entire Wonder Woman getup, and gets Steve out of Dodge with the promise of being led to Ares, but Diana's actions do not go unnoticed.
If no one else will defend the world from Ares, then I must.
You know that if you choose to leave, you may never return.
Who will I be if I stay?
By the way, I don't know how many people know this, but for those of you that don't, this entire exchange with Diana being the daughter of Zeus and Amazonian views on sex, all of that was improv. I have no idea where the script ends and the improv begins, but I love this scene all the more now that I know that. I mean, there are cuts, so I wonder how much of it remained improv and was just allowed to be filmed and be just a waste of time and budget money, but it was worth it. In this scene, Ludendorff and Dr. Poison, respectively played by Danny Huston and Elena Anaya, chat away and, essentially, she comes up with a new poison that seems to be... terrible. But, I want to take this moment and keep it in my back pocket for a spell. I'll reference this later because this bugs me, but, in the meantime, Ludendorff is Ares. Got it. Diana and Steve arrive in London, and we get some pretty predictable fish-out-of-water moments. Now, I do have to be honest here. This is one of my least favorite scenes. Why? The characters feel uncharacteristically not understanding of each other. So Steve's trying to get that journal back to command, right? Cue problems. Diana thinks that Steve is breaking his promise in taking her to the war, to Ares. Girl, Have you forgotten that court hearing with the lasso of truth? You knew that Steve had his own mission. He had his own thing that he needed to do. He has broken no promises. And frankly, it doesn't sound like it's the most time-consuming of detours. Calm down. Let the man do what he needs to do. And if it's taking longer than you're comfortable with, then just do your mission without him. Don't guilt trip. But Diana's not the only offender. Almost right away, Steve gets really frustrated with her when she does anything. Walk in this direction. Frustrated with her outfit, which is hidden behind a cloak, by the way, that looks like something that anyone from this time period would wear, so there really doesn't feel like any need for shopping. Annoyed when she asks questions, annoyed when she looks at a baby. Dude, give her a freaking second. I know you're in a rush, but there's a way to be delicate about this. What happened to that vigor that you were boasting about?
Being a spy, you have to show a certain amount of vigor.
I hate to be a sexist prick about this, but what female-led movie would be complete without a clothes-changing montage? To be fair, this is the best one that I've ever seen. Mostly because it's not loaded with pop songs, laughing, posing. Truly what's done here is far more palatable. Put a born and bred warrior in fashion and the comedy kind of writes itself. Doing high kicks in a dress, tearing them, complaining about how they feel. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't having fun. But what truly enhances the comedy? Etta Candy, played by Lucy Davis.
What is a secretary?
I go where he tells me to go and I do what he tells me to do.
That's called slavery.
I really like her. It's fashion. Keeps our tummies in.
Why must you keep them in?
Only a woman with no tummy would ask that question. Yet really specs. Suddenly she's not the most beautiful woman you've ever seen.
I love you, woman. But then Gal has to upstage you.
Oh, let me try it by myself.
Let me try it by myself.
I must remember my first kiss. What am I, a guy?
I was a ballet dancer.
Okay.
Ballet.
You a typical example of your sex?
I'd like to think of myself as above average.
Above average.
Huh?
There is no force on earth or heaven that will convince me that this was scripted. I refuse to believe that Gal is not this dorky. They leave the store, but it turns out that they've been spied on, and the bad guys want Dr. Poison's journal back.
Oh, it's the bad guy convention.
Is it stupid because it's a stupid line, or is it secretly funny because it's a stupid line by Steve who's trying to be witty?
I suppose this is what you men consider being witty.
The pair fight them off and try to get information from the last baddie, but he chews a cyanide capsule and dies before they can get anything out of him. They inform the Colonel of British intelligence that he has Dr. Poison's journal, and we're formally introduced to Sir Patrick Morgan, played by the great David Thewlis. The journal is encrypted by an unknown language, but Diana lends a helping hand, translating, and it confirms Steve's greatest fear.
You have to find out where they're making that gas. You have to burn it to the ground, destroy it. If it is used, it will kill everyone on both sides.
That is what soldiers do.
Now I do love Diana's expression here. It's such an impassioned clash of culture and idealisms. How insulting it must be for Diana to see a military leader so callously write off the lives of the soldiers under his command, when her experiences have shown her leaders throwing themselves into battle, risking their lives without a second's hesitation. How they communicate and work off of each other to overcome forces that are technologically superior to them. Of course these generals seem like cowards to her, and it's not hard to see why. Even when a perfectly acceptable plan of sending Steve, their spy, behind enemy lines to stop something terrible from happening, they refuse. But at the same time, it's not like we don't understand the logic here. They're on the verge of ending this war. This is a delicate time. If even the slightest thing goes wrong, the war could be prolonged and even more people will die. So we understand where the generals are coming from. Maybe the way that he's nonchalantly voicing the hard decisions could be called into question. I love this scene to pieces. Despite her outrage at both the British leadership and Steve, he reveals that he was lying about not acting upon the information they learn and decide to go to the front anyway. But not without some help. They head to the local pub and recruit the suave Samir, played by Saeed Tegmawi, and the lovable drunk Charlie, played by the fabulous Ewan Bremner, and with additional peripheral support from Sir Patrick himself. Diana and Steve are heading to the guy who will secretly get them to the front lines, and we get a rather cute scene with Diana trying ice cream for the first time.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
You should be very proud.
Thank you very much.
But then Diana gets her first taste of what this war is truly doing to those fighting it.
It's awful.
That's why we're here.
Now we get to yet another one of my least favorite scenes that I feel like could have been cut. Basically, we have Ludendorff being testy over the German leadership, signing the armistice, and kills them, believing that he can win the war with his new weapon, and they dismiss him. Here's why I don't really care for this scene. Because the movie doesn't really care either. Killing these German guys doesn't really amount to anything in the future. It's not like there's a future scene where the British are all like, "Yo, Germans, where you at, bro?" These deaths don't exactly increase tension or make the hero's journey any more difficult. It's just kind of an excuse to show how Ludendorff is ruthless and evil. And there is a very uncharacteristically evil laugh that comes out of him in Dr. Poison.
But the Musk won't help.
They don't know that.
If this was that kind of movie, maybe I would like this a little bit more. But these two have been pretty serious baddies up to this point. Just doesn't work for me. This actor had a bad line read. Ludendorff randomly takes a hit of his strength returning gas, which, why did he do that? It's just not a great scene and could have easily been cut and we'd miss nothing. Back to our heroes, and we're introduced to the reputable smuggler, Chief, played by Eugene Braverock, who loads them up with weapons and treats.
May we get what we need, but may we never get what we deserve.
But the real highlight of the scene is learning more about Charlie and his PTSD, explaining his drinking and general mannerisms. Honestly, I find the scene pretty heartbreaking. The one guy in the group who prides himself on being the one ruthless killer is actually the most fragile in the group. And Bremner is so good at towing that line. It's probably one of the most human moments in the entire story. This movie is more human than the entirety of the DCEU thus far. And now we get to the undisputed best scene in the entire film. Diana sees horses getting beaten, crying babies, refugees, wounded soldiers, all of whom she wants to help, but is told by everyone that there's nothing that can be done. And her frustration is loud and clear in this expression. In the trenches of no man's land, Diana's had enough of being told what she can't do.
Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
And marches on the battlefield to take on the opposing German army. And I'm just gonna let this play because it's too fucking awesome. What makes this sequence work so well for me is that it feels equally like a war film and a superhero story. The grittiness, the dark tone, the helplessness, the sheer defeat that these soldiers must be feeling. That even the mere sight of a smuggler is reason to stand up and celebrate. It just feels so raw and powerful. Even when Wonder Woman finally marches on that battlefield in full armor, colors clashing against the dark landscape, it doesn't feel out of place. It feels like she really is this bright symbol of hope, ironically doing a better job of that than Superman ever did in the first two films. But what I really love is that it's a different kind of defining moment that we don't often see in superhero movies. It's not about who she's fighting, it's about who she's defending. And that was what Patty Jenkins was trying to go for. Apparently, she had to fight tooth and nail to get this scene, because the studio heads were just utterly confused by this. This entire scene is dedicated to a superhero taking the brunt of the punches and paving the way for the soldiers to do their job. As far as I'm concerned, this is an iconic moment in any superhero movie. Badass, inspiring. This is what makes it worth watching multiple times, especially for me. Although, After seeing Sergeant Stubby in American Hero, I kind of wish I'd seen a little dog like that running around in the trenches, just kind of to honor another World War I hero. I swear to God, if that was in this movie, just done. This is the best superhero movie ever. Stop making superhero movies. You are done. You have been outclassed. You're never going to be better than this. But for those of you who wanted to see Wonder Woman kick some ass, you get it. A nice hearty second helping of a 3-course meal. And now for the home stretch. This plaza scene is yet again one of my favorite set pieces. I love the iconic no man's land defense moment, and I love the showcase of Diana's martial prowess, but this scene is pure superhero. You've got high jumps, super speed and super strength, and a fun sequence of lasso of truth usage. Though after playing the Injustice video games, I do really wish that she used it as a whip just once. I don't mean to be spoiled despite being an only child, but all I'm saying is, rainbow sprinkles on ice cream hurt nobody. A sniper starts causing problems, and when Charlie can't bring himself to pull the trigger, Steve hatches his own idea.
Diana! Shield!
That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do a superhero movie. Protecting the helpless, saving the innocent, stopping the bad guys, celebrated as a hero, and a whole lot of violence. I especially love that parallel with the Shield and the beach invasion on Themyscira. I love when characters learn from each other. It's such a small but easy way to show growth, and even give greater importance and badassery to those previous scenes during a rewatch. From No Man's Land to the destruction of that clock tower, I could watch that shit forever, man. The epic photo is taken, and Steve learns that Ludendorff is holding a gala the next day at German High Command, which isn't far from their location, and suspects that's where the new gas weapon is being made. However, Sir Patrick advises against infiltrating the gala in fear of ruining the armistice. Steve decides to defy that order, and Diana comes to the conclusion that Ludendorff is Ares. Say it with me. I really like this scene too. What can I say? I like superheroes doing mundane things like drinking and dancing. The awkward romantic tension between Steve and Diana is pretty adorable, but I really do like seeing Charlie sitting at that piano and singing. If I were to interpret this, I would say that Charlie feels good about being part of a liberation effort, giving these people their homes back, and the town locals considering him a hero. For the first time in who knows how long, he's at peace. As brief as it is, it's a sweet and heartfelt moment. And in case you've been missing it, I like sweet and heartfelt moments. Diana and Steve continue dancing and end the night sleeping together. The next day is the big day as Team Wonder sets off to German High Command, but tensions rise when Diana makes it clear that she wants to kill Ludendorff, but Steve is once again telling her what she can't do.
Don't tell me what I can't do!
And infiltrates command on his own. But of course Diana has her own ideas.
What are you supposed to be?
What are you doing?
Steve tries to put the moves on Dr. Poison to see where she's making her latest project, but Diana inadvertently foils the plan. Seriously, how is no one alarmed by the obvious sword sticking out of the back of her dress? While everyone else is wondering how it stays there, I'm wondering why no one says anything. Look at these guys, they know what's up! She tries to kill Ludendorff as he leaves, but it's Steve's turn to get in the way, and Diana thinks that he doesn't believe her about Ares being behind this war. She pushes him aside and chases after Ludendorff, and while I do find this sequence to be particularly powerful, it doesn't always add up for me. Ludendorff was maybe just a few seconds ahead of Diana, and she ran after him. How did he manage to get to that gun that deploys the gas to that village before catching up to him? Fine, suspension of disbelief. I have learned to forgive this. Why? Because once again, we get a better Superman movie in this Wonder Woman movie. Diana's first instinct is to race to the village and find any survivors, only to find that she's too late. Steve catches up to her, but in a truly heart-wrenching moment, Diana no longer believes that Ares has corrupted just the Germans.
It isn't just the Germans that Ares has corrupted, it's you too. I will find Ares, and I will kill him.
She races off to confront Ludendorff, and a fight scene ensues.
I am Diana of Themyscira, and your wrath upon this world is over.
She kills him, but soon realizes that her actions didn't matter. I adore Diana's horror at the sudden realization that mankind is just inherently violent and cruel. That this war just feels so pointless. That internal chaos that is clearly going through her mind. It's like watching a child finally lose her innocence and realize just how screwed up life really is. And this realization coming at the cost of leaving her people never able to return again. Her mother was right about humanity not deserving her protection, that the man that she fell in love with might possibly be just another part of the problem. She was so convinced that there was an easy solution, but realized that maybe there is no solution. I feel for that. Likewise, Steve has to be the one to break the bad news that, yeah, this world is really screwed up, but it's his world, and he needs to be a part of it in the only way that he knows how anybody knows how. Steve has to leave behind Diana to complete the mission, and Diana is visited by an old friend. Or is he? Yep, it turns out that Ludendorff was just some German dude, and it was Sir Patrick that was Ares the whole time. Finally, I can talk about why I don't like this twist. It makes less sense that Ludendorff is not Ares. This entire movie has been about saying that Ludendorff is Ares. All the signs pointed to him. Remember that scene that I've been keeping in my back pocket? Remember, Poison said that this gas was meant to restore his strength. Where was his strength? It didn't appear to be lost unless he was Ares, who was severely weakened in his battle against the gods. The gas makes his skin glow, he wants the war to continue, and more on that gas of his, it makes him super strong, enough to fight Diana. What practical use did that have in this war? He literally doesn't use it for anything other than fighting Diana. Ludendorff should have been Ares. Oh man, but the hits were only getting started. We get quite possibly the stupidest moment in the entire movie. Yes, this is the stupidest moment, and quite possibly the stupidest thing that any villain could ever do.
The God Killer.
And he's not the God Killer. You are.
Rawr, I'm a werewolf. If you want to kill me, shoot me with a silver bullet. Hi. I'm Superman. If you want to kill me, just get some kryptonite. What dumbass would give that shit away? Screw your complaints about a bad CGI final fight. Screw your complaint about how Ares looks and sounds. My complaint is that his defeat at the end will be his own damn fault. Really? There's a lot of in-universe problems here. Ares reveals that he never caused the war. All he did was send subliminal messages for weapons, but it's humans that used them. So, did Zeus actually create mankind to be good and just? The whole message of this movie is that mankind has always done and will always do its own thing. So, in the beginning, was Ares behind the corruption of mankind? If not, then when did we fall off the rails? I know toward the beginning Hippolyta said that the story she told was just that, a story, but if that's the case, how much of that mythology is true? Ares tries to convince Diana to join him, she says no, and a fight ensues. Knowing there's no way to help her, and running through their options, Steve decides to take matters into his own hands, but not before saying a muffled goodbye to her. Ares gets the upper hand on Diana, and just as it seems there's no hope for our heroes, Steve makes the ultimate sacrifice. Diana is sent into a frenzy, and Ares is convinced that Diana sees the truth about mankind until she finally makes out her final moments with Steve with clarity.
Let me do it.
It has to be me. It has to be me.
Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong.
I could save today. You could save the world. I wish we had more time. I love you.
Opting to love, honor, and cherish Steve's memory, Diana comes to grips with the ambiguity of man's soul. I will fully admit that it's cheesy for her to literally admit that she believes in love. See, I get that chill down my spine every time. But again, I kind of accept it. In case you've missed it, I kind of love this movie. Up to these specific beats in the story, it's been downright amazing. It's not like the rest of the movie hasn't been slowly reinforcing that sentiment. And of course, remember that time when I said that the DC heroes have been compared to Greek gods? Well, Wonder Woman is often compared to being Hera, the goddess of love. So, for all intents and purposes, it is technically in theme for what Wonder Woman is supposed to be about. So, here's a block of pepper jack. You earned that cheese. Diana bids
goodbye, brother,
and destroys Ares. The war concludes, and Diana is shown that Steve and his sacrifice will not be forgotten. Fast forward to the present day, Diana concludes
that only love can truly save the world.
You earned the cheese the first time, not the second. No, not what I was getting at. She concludes that she will continue to fight for mankind. Overall, yeah, I still love this movie. And I stand by my statement when I said that this is among my favorites, if not my favorite superhero movie of all time. Dark Knight? Yeah, that was my favorite for a long time. But between this and that movie, I see myself popping in Wonder Woman for shits and giggles far more frequently than Dark Knight. In complete transparency, I have. Avengers Endgame? Hell yeah, that is my favorite Avengers movie. But I dare you to watch that in a vacuum, without the context of Infinity War, Civil War, or really any of the other MCU films that have come before. Wonder Woman stands on its own. Endgame does not. Does Wonder Woman have problems? Yeah, plenty. And judging from my reactions, some pretty big ones too. So with that in mind, how can I possibly hold Wonder Woman up to the same standard as Dark Knight, Endgame, or any other great or popular superhero movie? Every time I see this movie, the problems become more apparent. Likewise, everything that I loved about it before seems to only get better with each viewing as well. I truly have never gotten tired of watching this. I saw it 5 times in theaters. Now that may not sound like very much compared to other cinephiles, but for me, that's gargantuan. My max has always been 3 times. Only 2 other movies prior to this have ever broken through that limitation. The Dark Knight, but the 4th time that I saw it was well after its initial release, and it was being shown for the employees at a movie theater that I was working at the time. So I barely counted. Star Wars The Force Awakens I saw 5 times in theaters, but I saw it when I was working for another movie theater, and it was free for all us employees. With Wonder Woman, I saw it 5 times, but I paid for it all 5 times. I distinctly remember going in the 4th time, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this will be the time when fatigue finally settles in. No. Once I got out of that theater, I'm like, God damn, I still love this movie. And I went in a 5th time, and I still wasn't tired of it. The only reason I didn't go again and really break that record, I think the movie just went out of theaters. For someone like me, that has to count for something. Wonder Woman has been in production hell for a decade. Female superhero movies in general have not been well respected, and kind of for good reason. I mean, look at the slate. Look at the competition that Wonder Woman had. But in my humble opinion, Wonder Woman is far and away the best one. Even Captain Marvel, which was an obvious response to Wonder Woman's success was not nearly as good as Wonder Woman. How ironic that DC up to this point was really trying to mimic the MCU, only for the MCU to mimic the DC universe in the end. And they failed in their attempt. I don't know what more I can say. I love this movie. Is it objectively the best superhero movie? Probably not. No, it's not. But will it be in my top faves forever? Damn right it will be. My honest rating for Wonder Woman, a 5 out of 5. And just to hammer this home, thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy out there. Please wear a mask if you go out. Hope to see you soon.